Welcome to the SF State Abroad Information Meeting, your guide to studying abroad. Today, we're going to talk about 3 basic things to help you along your journey to getting overseas. The first deals with that pesky word study in front of study abroad. How are the programs going to fit with your academic goals? How to find a program? Then we're going to shift gears and talk about the abroad part, the fun part. How you don't take the advisor's word. These are amazing, great programs, but we have a whole network of study abroad alumni, international students you can talk to and get their perspective to see if that's somewhere you want to spend a semester or a year. Then finally, we're going to talk about what comes after this meeting. What are your next steps? Sadly, not run to the airport, a few steps in between to get yourself started. So let's start with that study piece. San Francisco State is unique in that we exclusively focus on exchange programs. What this means for you, fundamentally, is 3 basic things. If you remember nothing else, we always hope you remember these basic facts about our programs. First and foremost, you're going to still pay SF State tuition. You pay tuition to San Francisco State, an international student at one of our partner universities that pays their home institution, and then you switch places, hence the idea of the exchange. So the cost difference comes down to cost of living. San Francisco, horrifyingly expensive. Students go abroad and they're like, wait a second, not everyone pays these high rents. In fact, even in Europe, sometimes I can have my own room and still pay less than San Francisco. And even with my airfare, my visa, etc., a lot of programs come out to being very similar or even cheaper than being at SF State. Of course, there are exceptions if you have your heart set on London, Paris, Tokyo, or Copenhagen. Those are expensive cities, but for the vast majority of programs, you're going to expect to pay similar or less than being at SF State because you're paying the same tuition. The difference is the cost of living. The second thing is that you remain a San Francisco State student while you are studying abroad. You're still coded at the university, which means you have all the same benefits. Most importantly, access to your financial aid while you are studying abroad. You can depend upon your financial aid just like you were at San Francisco State, and even more because you can use financial aid to cover your airfare, your housing deposit in another country, and to support you while you're there. Again, just like you were a student at San Francisco State. All of your financial aid, with the exception of work study, goes with you. Sadly, work study is tied to SF State, so even if I'm looking at Mexico or Canada, I can't reasonably commute back to SF State on a weekly basis, so I do have to give that up, but otherwise, all of your aid goes with you and can fund you. For some students, actually studying abroad financially can sometimes be even a better deal. San Francisco State is nationally ranked for the number of federally funded scholarships. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'm going to mention my favorite one, which is the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. If you're a Pell Grant recipient and a U.S. citizen, I absolutely want you to apply for the scholarship. San Francisco State has been a top producer for this one scholarship for the last 20 years. Several $1 million have gone to SF State students just from this one scholarship. For give you an example, I had a student who went to the University of East Anglia for a year, and she said actually it was financially the best year ever because UEA is in Norwich, so she didn't have to pay London costs, but still got easy access there. She got all of her Cal grants, her Pal grants, just like on campus, and then she got the Gilman Scholarship, which basically replaced all of her loans. So she got to spend a year in the UK and not have any loans. What an amazing gift to have from study abroad. So financially, of course, we want to make sure the programs are financially accessible for everyone. But as your advisor, I still like that pesky word study in front of study abroad. The coursework, the classes you take abroad are SF State credit. They're going to count and appear on your transcript the exact same as if you were taking these classes at San Francisco State. So you have to take them anyway. Why not take them in another country? Travel around on the weekend. I mean, from here, it's lovely. San Francisco is a great city, but where are you going to go on the weekend? Stockton, Sacramento? I mean, they're nice, but they're not the same as Paris or Berlin. Go there for the weekend while making similar or even better degree progress. I say better degree progress because it can be competitive to get classes at SF State, whereas that's not true at our partner university. Sometimes it's easier to enroll in the classes that you need. So that's why we choose to do the exchange model for our SF State abroad programs. We have programs in 36 countries. You can go to 6 of the 7 continents, every continent but Antarctica. Sorry, too cold. No university there. Crossing off your list, but otherwise we got all the other continents covered. So then how do I start narrowing down that list? Well, back to that pesky word study in front of study abroad. It really depends upon academically, what do you want to accomplish during your time overseas? And that might be one of 3 academic goals. You can go abroad for your major. Every major except for nursing and pre-nursing has at least one option, if not more. You can study abroad in English and be making degree progress. So definitely consider going abroad for your major. Sometimes students go, okay, well that's cool, but I was really hoping for a different location. Then look at your minor, see where your minor can go. Other students will declare a minor just for study abroad. I really want to be in Asia, so that Pacific Asian Studies minor starts to sound really good. So definitely consider going abroad for your major, your minor. I said with the exception of any pre-nursing and nursing majors, because there's a California law that says I have to take nursing classes in the state of California. Therefore, I probably want to go maybe my sophomore year before I get into the nursing program, because you can do the other 2 academic goals and be making progress, which also, by the way, makes you look really good and interesting to the nursing program. So we definitely want those nursing majors to go abroad. Just going to work with you on a slightly different timeline. Everyone can, whether you be any major, including nursing, upper, lower division, you can be taking your general education classes abroad, your GEs. In fact, those can be even easier and more flexible about which classes you take if you take them overseas. So definitely consider looking for the GEs or general studies, as they're called in the database, just to see what programs come up that, because you'll get additional opportunities in countries through looking at GEs or general studies. The third category is language. You don't have to major or minor in a language to be pursuing that for study abroad. Maybe personally you just really want to learn Korean or Italian, or professionally get a job in California. I need to have Mandarin, Cantonese, or Spanish to really be competitive. So regardless of whether it's a personal, professional, academic goal for language learning, that is a legitimate academic goal you can be pursuing. So I want you to think about, and for a moment in your mind, which one of these 3 academic goals primarily interests you. And I stress the word primary because sometimes you can overlap them, but not always. For example, if I'm doing the Learn Spanish program, I can very easily take humanities and social science GEs abroad, whether that be the upper or lower division. But I'm not going to be able to take my life science, area A, B, D2, E, or F. So again, some overlap, but not all. And same thing for my major. If I'm not a Spanish major or minor, I probably not going to be taking my major or minor coursework while I'm doing the Learn Spanish program. So that's why I want you to pick one goal to start your research and see what your options are. So where do we go for that? So a great starting point is the Study Abroad website, studyabroad.sfsu.edu. There's a few places, things I want to highlight here on this page. Under the Preparing to Study Abroad, there's this drop-down list. I really recommend looking at the Getting Started that will walk you step by step through the process of applying and give you all the resources. But there's also a number of resources down here that I do really recommend, and we'll talk more about them later. The other thing I want to highlight is the SF State Abroad database. The quickest way to get there is to start from our website here and then click on the search programs button here on the right top corner. This is the SF State Abroad database. This is where this is the fun part of research. Start imagining where you're going to go based on your academic goals, your major, minor, GEs, and or learn language. A great way to start finding those programs is on the left-hand side, the subject area. This is a drop-down list. Again, you can search your major, your minor. For GEs, whether it be upper or lower, look for general studies. And then, of course, you can also search for a language. The same thing is true if I do the keyword search here. So if I'm a communication major, instead of going to the drop-down list, I can just write communication and see what comes up. So there's a couple different ways to search it to get to the same result. Next, I want to just talk a little bit about how you would look at the programs. And so a couple things to keep in mind. First, don't worry, is language instruction. 80% of our programs are in English. Like I said before, every major, minor, at least one option, if not more. You can study abroad in English and be making degree progress. You can also go abroad for upper and lower GE classes. So don't worry if you guys are concerned for a second. Maybe you're actually interested in learning or improving another language. If you have any interest at all, even if it's 1%, I do highly recommend that you think about doing a learn language program. Sometimes they're called language and culture programs or learn language in the database. This is really the best way you possibly can learn or improve another language. I've taken a lot of language classes over the years, 1 hour, 4 or 5 times a week. It's really helpful, but the second I get outside that classroom door, I start speaking English a mile a minute, and it just falls right out of my head. Versus if you were actually overseas, it really has a much better impact. To give you an example, my former colleague Noah did the Learn French program in Aix-en-Provence in the south of France. He had only a semester or 2 of French prior, and after a year of his time there in Aix, his French was high enough. He was able to spend a second year in Paris taking his major coursework in French. There's no way after a year of any language at San Francisco State you could do that, but you can do this on the Learn Language programs because suddenly it's an adventure. You're taking these classes, but you go out of the classroom door just to do your basic shopping or go to the post office, and you're using that language and it gets reinforced in your mind in a way that simply cannot be replicated elsewhere. So like I said, if you have any reason, academic, personal, or professional, to want to know a language, really recommend this because there's no other time in your life that you could do this. I work in international education, still can't convince my boss to let me take a semester off to go and do a Learn Language program. I do personally consider this a little bit of an investment because while you can take the humanities and social science GEs, you won't necessarily be able to do your major or your minor, so you are really focusing on the language. But again, it's a really great investment. So if you have any interest, definitely consider doing that. Some of the programs do require a semester of the language prior, not all. So if this is the case, definitely something to look in sooner than later or to see if you need to take a class. If you took a language at a community college courses equally count to SF State courses in terms of study abroad prerequisites. If you took it in high school, unfortunately that won't count, but I do really encourage you to take a placement exam with the modern languages if you took it in high school or you just self-study and try to place out of at least 1 semester of college level language and you have qualified. So definitely some options to be considering. The third category is advanced language. We consider this to be 4 semesters of college level of any language. Again, you could take it at community college, a placement exam, or you could do the Learn Language program and get your skills up to that level. SF State students can study abroad multiple times, up to 2 years or 4 semesters. If I'm doing an advanced program, I can actually make really rapid progress towards my degree because I can get one class double or even triple counted towards degree requirements at San Francisco State. For example, if I'm an international relations major and I speak Spanish, I might go to Chile and take my international relations class in Spanish and have that one class signed off by the Spanish program, international relations department, as well as that could actually count for my upper division social science GE requirement. One class just knocked out 3 requirements at San Francisco State. So definitely something to consider if you have the advanced language skills or want to work your way up towards that level. Another thing I want you to consider when you're looking at the database is, check the requirements. All programs have 2, sometimes 3 basic requirements you want to be aware of as you're narrowing down your top choice programs. The first one is class standing. The soonest you can go abroad is as a sophomore. So that means that I will be applying in advance. So I'll be applying as a freshman. So I won't necessarily have class sophomore standing at the time of my application, but I'm projecting that the fall or spring semester prior to departure, I will have the class standing. So if I'm in my first semester of my fall freshman year, or I could be applying to go abroad fall of my sophomore year and projecting by the end of that spring semester, I will have at least 24 units or 30 units. For study abroad programs, 24 is sufficient to apply for the sophomore program. As a sophomore abroad, I can do my lower division GEs and or a learned language program. As a junior or senior, I can do all the academic goals, major, minor, GEs, learn language. Again, I don't necessarily have to be at the standing at the time of application, as I could apply as a sophomore for my junior year. We will take down to 55 units to count as meeting the requirements of a junior standing program. Just keep in mind, you do have to fill all study abroad requirements the fall or spring semester prior to departure, not over the summer. If you have any questions or concerns about units, please feel free to email studyabroad@sfsu.edu and just let us know which program you're interested in and how many units you have, and we'll let you know if there's any concerns about you applying for the program. The second one is GPA. This is a cumulative or overall GPA. So if you have any questions or concerns, this time I'd like you to sign up for advising, because for us, GPA is more than just a number. We want to know a bit more context, especially for like transfer students who have a long academic record. We want to know a little bit more because that transfer credit does factor in your overall GPA. Most programs is 2.75. Some programs are lower, some programs are higher. There's a number of programs that have some flexibility with the GPA, and there are some programs that are very rigid and a little bit more difficult. So again, if you have any questions or concerns, please sign in for advising. These 2 requirements are true for all programs. However, some programs also have course prerequisites. Not all, in fact, most do not, but this is still a very good thing to check sooner than later to see if there are any classes you need to take in advance, because again, you cannot take these classes during the summer prior to departure. So you do need to plan on taking them during the fall or spring semester. For example, all journalism majors are required to take the journalism war class prior to studying abroad. That's actually a departmental requirement for study abroad. So just again, most programs don't have it. Don't be surprised if you don't see this, but some programs do. It's a really good idea to check this sooner than later so you're not surprised at a later date. Okay, the other thing I want to talk to you about, and you're looking at the database, is not to be surprised that we actually have 2 types of exchange programs. All of our programs are exchange programs, which are called SF State Abroad. Under this umbrella of SF State Abroad, the 2 types we have are SF State Exchange and the California State University International Programs, also known as CSUIP or simply IEP programs. SF State Exchange programs are open only to SF State students, whereas CSUIP programs are open to all 23 CSU campuses. Very few differences. I would definitely recommend looking at them holistically, because what is available to your major may be split between the two programs, or some majors may be better served by IP programs while others through SF State. This is how we can say all majors have options to study abroad. The only thing I want you to note is that on CSRIP programs, there is one additional step. You'll notice that the website does say check out CSRIP's website for complete details. So I just want to make sure you do make that extra click if you're looking at an IP program, and that's also how you'll know you are looking at a CSRIP program. So let's go and look at two program examples. The first one's going to be an SF State exchange program. The second one is a CSRIP program, just so you can see the difference and how I recommend looking at the two different program types. So let's say we did a search in the database and we wanted to know, where can civil engineer majors go? And the University of Dundee in Scotland came up as an option. Great. So let's say we're interested in this program, then let's check some basic requirements about it. So we'll scroll down through the program and we'll see eligibility fairly soon. All right, so this program, since it is for a major, it is requiring junior or senior standing, like I said before, 55 units. Does have one of the 3.0 GPAs, but lower upon special circumstances. So if I'm below that, I will definitely talk with a study abroad advisor, but good to know that there is some flexibility. So if I'm happy with these requirements, I'll keep moving forward. If not, go back to the database and click on a different program. Next, after we check requirements, let's look at course information and academic area. So just going to confirm that, my subject area is available. Well, again, if I'd done a civil engineering search, this would have come up, but sometimes students want to know what else is available there. This will basically tell me everything that's possible. It is always very possible that the University of Dundee, in fact, they do teach other things that are not listed here. However, if it's not on this list, then it's not part of our agreement, and therefore it's not available to you. So that's why I do like to just look at the subject areas to see the range of possibilities. But ultimately, we want to see exactly what we could take. So now we're going to look at the course listings link down here. This will take me directly to the University of Dundee's website. So don't be surprised if you're going somewhere completely different and you're going to start looking at their classes. Also, don't be surprised if most universities are a bit decentralized, meaning they don't have a centralized database or a course search like we do. You may have to look under individual departments. If you're struggling at all with this, please feel free to sign in for advising, to speak with an advisor, but we do ask that you first look and try to see if you can understand their system. If you're looking for your major, your minor, think about whether or not you want to take your core classes or your elective classes for your major, your minor. If it's a core class, there should be a certain amount of alignment. Course titles don't have to match, but you do want to look at the course descriptions of the SF State class and the course abroad to see if there's enough alignment that this might be something to consider. If you think so, make a list. We'll come back to it later. Just make a list of potential course and set it aside. For electives, they're great because they just have to be in your field of study, but they don't have to match at all. Maybe you found a really exciting civil engineering class that is never going to be taught at SF State, but that could still be an elective towards your major or your minor, as long as it's in the field of study. So just start making a list of classes that you think are interesting, that could be electives. Then if you're looking for GEs or general studies programs, you're going to be more interested in the categories. So this time I want you to look at the SF State Academic Bulletin. What are the GEs? So let's say I have my social science upper division GE requirement. I look at the SF State Bulletin. We're not trying to match courses or titles. So I'm just looking at what are kind of the categories or fields of study. So I see history, political science, and international relations are all considered social sciences at SF State. So therefore, I could take pretty much any political science, international relations, or history class abroad and have it count as my upper division social science GE requirement. Again, if you struggle with this at all, talk to an advisor. But for now, just start making a list of potential courses that you might want to take abroad. This plus the requirements should help you decide very quickly if this is a yes, no, or maybe program, and whether or not you want to start doing more research and looking further on the program page. But for now, we're going to pause this here and we're going to go to my CSUIP program example. Again, CSUIP programs are open to all 23 CSU campuses, and we're going to look at the program in Mexico. That is a great program for any child and adolescent development majors. So we're starting on the same website. The process starts exactly the same. Scroll down, look at eligibility. All right, great. The difference now is going to be the fact that it says, please check out CSUIP's website for complete details. This is the difference here, and this is how you know that it is a CSUIP program. So we do definitely want you to click on that, and that will take you directly to CSUIP's database, which is again managed by the Chancellor's Office because it's for all 23 campuses. You also can tell this when I look further down for the course information. Under courses, it says check out CSUIP's website, again, for the course information and to read the IP bulletin where they've already converted all the information back into the CSU system. So they make it very easy for you. So you definitely want to click on these, their program page for this program, and we'll just check requirements and courses once again. So just don't be surprised if it just looks slightly different because it is a different website. So check requirements. All right, they are still the same. That is excellent. So great. If there's any disagreement, always go with what CSUIP says because these are their programs. They have the final say. Then we're going to look at courses, and for that, we'll look at academic information. I know it's very tempting if there's like a course button, always start with the academic bulletin first because that is basically how it's already being interpreted and translated to what it's going to look like back in the CSU system. But you also find kind of a brief version of that on the left-hand side here. But for more information, definitely look at the academic bulletin. This will tell you more in-depth information, how units, how grades, if there's any required classes you have to take abroad, etc. So just be sure to read the bulletin. It can be really helpful. Sometimes students think, oh, I don't need to read that, especially if I'm going to the UK or Australia. It's already in English, no problem. I have to say, those students get more confused than anyone else because there are still terminology differences, even in English-speaking countries. For example, in the UK, the word course means more like major field of study. So if I look for courses, I'll never find any classes. So instead, I need to look for the word modules. It'll just save you a lot of time and headache if you just glance at the bulletin and just because it will guide you through how to do these searches. Again, this is the basic information I want you to know about a program as you consider whether this is a yes, no, or maybe program. We don't really expect you to do really in-depth research on every single program. Just pick 3 programs that interest you to do these basic facts, and then you can always go back to the database and expand your research later. So that's just kind of a brief way we want you to look for a program on the database. So let's switch gears now and talk about the fun research. Like I said, as the advisor, I'm very knowledgeable about program requirements and things like that, but you may prefer to ask a student more about, housing. Well, I can tell you the housing option. You might prefer to get the insight of the student in terms of whether they enjoy living on campus or off campus, or, what is the student life like? Is there nightlife, etc.? A great way to answer all of these questions is to talk to students in the Study Abroad Club, also known as IEEC, or the International Education Exchange Council. This is the largest student organization at San Francisco State. It comprises students like yourself who are interested in study abroad alumni, and all of our incoming exchange students. Where we're sending, we're receiving. And those incoming students have the best perspective because they've taken classes at their home university, lived there. Now they're taking classes at San Francisco State. So they have that really nice comparative perspective. You can reach out to them virtually and start talking to them through the IEC Instagram account, following them at SFSU IEC. You can do messages to the count, see what they have to say. You can also look on their Facebook page. This Facebook page changes each semester. It's always going to be IEC, the term, and then the current year. So IEC fall 2022 or IEC spring 2023, etc. Will be the current term page. Definitely good idea to check that out. These two pages where they're going to promote a lot of their information, events. They're very big, but also very active. They're putting on at least one event, if not more, per semester, and even some events before the start of the semester, each semester. You can also connect with them in person on campus during the fall and spring semesters. You will find on our website under Preparing to Study Abroad a page called Connecting with International Students, where it will show you each semester what is the schedule of study abroad alumni and international students who are hanging out in the quad. So you can go, oh, I want to talk to someone from Sweden, so I'll go at this time. Or I want to talk to someone from South Korea, I'll come up by at this time. Maybe it's a country where you're going to study abroad, or maybe it's a country you just want to visit while you're studying overseas. These are really fun to just swing by the table in the quad in the middle of campus here. You also you can find on that same page information about IEC's language exchange. This is a great way if you're taking like French at San Francisco State, free tutoring. Practice with some French students, or we're going to go to Thailand and you want to just meet some of the Thai students because they don't really walk around waving the Thai flag. But if I go to the Thai language exchange, I can pick up a few basic phrases of Thai to help me out, and then also meet the Thai students and I can ask them non-language questions as well. I can also pop up to IEC's office during the fall and spring semester and talk to some of the officers there in the Cesar Chavez Student Center, top floor T125. So these are all ways just to meet students in person as well as virtually to learn more about the programs. You can also read about SF State students' experience before, during, and after study abroad on the sfstateabroad.com blog site. This is a wonderful resource. You can search by program, country, etc. to get more details. I also highly recommend following us on Instagram at SF State Abroad. During the fall and spring semesters, we frequently have students do takeovers on Tuesdays. You can find the previous takeovers here in the highlights section at the top. This can be really nice just to see what students have done before on an actual takeover day. Of course, you can message them in real time as they're going through their experience. You'll also notice on this page that in addition to takeovers, if we have any special events coming up, like a study abroad fair or with the State Department, etc., you're going to notice them being posted here. So I definitely recommend following us on Instagram. All right, so let's shift gears one more time and talk about what comes after this meeting and what's your next steps. The first is to go back to the database and just create an account. To log in, go to the top right corner and click in sign in or sign up. This will take you to the login page. I do really recommend logging in using the portal button. This will help you if you already have an SF State ID number. If you are a new student at SF State and do not yet have your ID number, then create an account by clicking on the sign up button here. Just please be consistent with the way you sign in each time. So if you start with the portal button, continue with that. If you start with the sign up button, continue with the sign in for later. If you use the sign up one, just be sure you'll have to note that SF State is your university since you didn't go through the portal. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. Then once you are in, you will only really have your email address. We really would like you to add your name, some basic other facts. There are two ways to do that. You can do that on the student information. This has more details, but you can also do it in the top right corner by clicking on the little gray outline of shadow and then clicking on settings. So please right away add a few more details. At the very least, your name, your ID number, your fields of study, etc. That would be very helpful for us. Then you can still go back and start looking at programs while you are logged in. And from here, you can start applying. Another great step is to go back to our website before. As I mentioned previously, the Preparing to Study Abroad has a wealth of resources. Before I mentioned the Getting Started page, now I want to draw your attention to some of the items further down here, and especially that budgeting page. We have a series of videos on our website that will guide you how to put together a budget for any program. Like I said, most programs are similar or cheaper than SF State, but there's personal preferences of, how much you're going to eat out, how much you're going to travel. That will influence your budget. This page here will walk you through the process of creating a budget tailored to you for any program. We also have some resources on funding as well as a scholarship page. So this is not required initially, but highly recommended that you start looking at this sooner than later, just at least to note the deadlines so you can start being strategic in your planning. It is not required to meet with any advisor to apply for study abroad, but if you're going abroad for your major or your minor, then it is recommended. Before, when we were looking at the courses, I said make a list of potential cores and electives. Now is when you pull that back out. So when you meet with your academic advisor, keep in mind they will not remember where you can go abroad or what classes are available overseas. So if you have trouble with those steps, talk to your study abroad advisor, and then you can share your screen, or if you go in person, show them those classes you're finding. And with the description, they can go, yeah, that's a good fit. Or actually for this core requirement, we really need to include X concept. Okay, so with that information, I can go back and look at the database again for study abroad, find a program with that concept, and I can start matching things up. So again, it's not required to apply, but recommended for your major or your minor. And you can meet with your academic advisor or your department chair. If you're going abroad for GEs, general education, then please hold off. The Undergrad Advising Center says they will trade flexibility with meeting with you later. So if you have any questions about GE classes and study abroad, please speak to a study abroad advisor. We do a lot of cross training with the Undergrad Advising Center and can help you in guiding you to a program that would be excellent for the GE classes you have left to take. If you're just taking a program for a language and you don't need it for a specific degree requirement, then you don't have to meet with anyone as well. But always feel free to reach out to your study abroad advisor if you have any questions or concerns. We can definitely help you with navigating their systems, etc. Once you have your program in mind and you're ready to apply, we do offer application workshops, both online and real time, as well as a series of videos. So feel free to watch or attend any of those. This is not required to apply. Some students say, oh, it was just so much easier and helpful if you just have you tell me how to fill this out. Other students say, nope, this is so easy. I've got this. So it's really up to you, but we are here to help you throughout the process. Be sure to note deadlines. It is very important to start planning sooner than later. So if you are trying to go abroad for the fall, the priority deadline is going to be February 1st, with the exception of the Waseda program in Japan and the Trostiken music program in Germany does have a one and done January 15th deadline, no exceptions. All other programs have a priority deadline of February 1st and a final deadline of March 1st. What this means is the priority deadline, if we get enough applicants, the program will close. So you can't count on every program being open until the final deadline. But a lot of programs are still open. If you're applying for spring or calendar year, priority deadline is September 15th. Same thing, with some but not all programs being open to October 1st. Currently, Australia and South Korea are very popular. Students who are interested in either of those countries are strongly encouraged to apply by the priority deadline and to consider having a second choice program. If you have any questions or concerns about that, please talk to a study abroad advisor. Which you can do via email, studyabroad@sfsu.edu. You can also sign up online on our website for virtual advising, or check our website for when we are offering in-person study abroad advising as well. So feel free to reach out to us whichever way is most convenient. As a quick recap, as your advisor, do love that pesky word study in front of study abroad. Where you go, those 36 countries, really depends upon your academic goal. If you're going abroad for your major, minor, GEs, or a learn language program. You don't have to take my word for it. These are amazing, great opportunities, but we have a whole network of study abroad alumni and international students you can talk to, get their perspective, and see whether you want to spend there. Who knows, you might end up spending 2 years there. And it's never too early to start applying. It's online, it's free. This is your first step to getting yourself overseas. So thank you so much for joining me today. Now let's find out where you will be going next.